Okay, so I mentioned I actually think it was my very most recent Owl House review previous to this one, that going back and rewatching these, re-experiencing these, you can kind of see more of the, maybe good isn't the right word, the not entirely bad of Amity shining through earlier than I thought you could originally. And man, I'm glad I mentioned that, because here we are at the episode where she actually starts to turn around as a character. This is Lost in Language. One of the most memorable episodes of the series, I think, because of some of the stuff it does. It splits Luz and Ida up for the majority of the story, which isn't exactly rare. Like, Ida and King do get a B-plot in this one that I'm not really going to talk about much, because it's mostly just cute time filler. Like, something from it may come back up later, if I'm remembering correctly, but it's mostly cute time filler, for now at least. That, as far as I recall anyway, it doesn't really seem to have any genuine story impact, which is fine. Time filler is perfectly fine, don't get me wrong. I like filler, just so long as it's entertaining. And it's not like character stuff can't be gleaned from filler. It's just, it's the kind of character stuff that doesn't have to be gleaned in any order, hence how it can be gleaned through filler, right? But aside from one detail that I will talk about in a second, there's not really anything to analyze in it, and so it's really the kind of thing that you guys should just see for yourselves, so I'm not really going to talk about it much. Essentially, I think her name was the Bat Queen, a very important demon, wants Ida to watch her kid for a while in exchange for payment in the form of treasure. And so Ida has to put up with an annoying kid who eventually spawns two more annoying kids, Gremlins style, in order to get her hands on her favorite thing of all time, money. It's entertaining enough, but really the only interesting thing to come out of it from an analysis perspective is the fact that after the kids have to go home, even though she was merely only tolerating them for most of her time with them, on screen anyway, Ida is genuinely sad, which may allude to why she took to Luz as fast as she did, even though she seems to value her independence. I'm thinking that Ida never had the chance to have kids, and now, even if she hasn't come to terms with it herself yet, like outwardly, there is a part of her that regrets that, which is an interesting character detail. That said, Luz's part in the episode is far more interesting. She, while all of this babysitting stuff is happening, is tasked with returning some books to the library for Ida. And while she's there, she catches Amity reading to children, and even though Amity claims that she's only doing it for like extra credit at school or something to that effect, it doesn't really matter the specifics. She makes an excuse. That's what's important. It kind of rings false from the very start, and you wonder if maybe this is just something that she enjoys doing, which is a cool character detail for Amity. And if that had been all the Amity that we had gotten in the entire episode, that still would have been interesting enough, but then the episode just becomes like an Amity redemption arc startup episode, and it is pretty fantastic. We are introduced to her older siblings, who I think are supposed to be twins, and I cannot remember their names at all. This is really bad. I made a point of like saying them out loud several times before I started the review. Oh geez. They shortened the boy twin's name to Ed a couple times? It doesn't matter. I'm sure I'll get it eventually. But we bump into these characters, and they're older, they're teenagers, and they're like cool kid style teenagers, right? They're that kind of characters. And they tease Amity a little bit and take to Luz pretty much instantly because she's something interesting, something novel. She's a human living on the Boiling Isles. That's not something you see every day. And Luz, at this point, she'd been reading her Azura books earlier in the episode, and Azura is the kind of hero who redeems her enemies and befriends her rivals, right? So Luz right now is interested in trying to befriend Amity. She's seen sparks of, maybe not kindness, but agreeability in Amity before or prior to this. And so she wants to try to forge some kind of bond between herself and this other girl. And she sees befriending some of Amity's family members as a way of doing that. And so runs around causing mischief around the library with them throughout the day. And it's bothersome stuff, but mostly harmless stuff. It's the kind of stuff that I would think was too mean to do. Some of it is anyway. But like, you know, mostly harmless. And some of it's actually pretty genuinely funny. And they do ask Luce to come back later during the, was it the Wailing Star or something like that? There's some kind of astrological event happening that the library is going to close early for. And we don't find out why until the twins mention that apparently it's supposed to cause something to happen at the library. So they want to come back and break in and see what that something is, or at least that's their excuse that they give to Luce. And I think it's funny. Luce is definitely trying to use them to get to Amity, not realizing that that's not really the avenue to go yet. Because of course it's going to turn out that they and Amity don't really get along, right? But it's also kind of implied that she's crushing on them a little bit, both of them, which is definitely an interesting character detail, one that they only really hint at, but still interesting nonetheless. So they show up and they discover that the event that happens causes the stuff in the books to come to life for the duration of this astrological event, and if you draw in changes to the characters in picture books, you can actually change the nature of the characters that emerge when you open the books up. But already you can see a disparity between their attitude and Luce's when she doesn't want to make changes to innocent kids' book characters just to be funny. Like, the episode doesn't come right out and say it, but Luce is the kind of person who recognizes the genuine impact that book characters can have on a person. She sees these book characters come to life and recognizes that these are characters that somebody loves, that have had a positive impact on their lives. Like, straight up, if the Azura character stepped out of one of her books, I think Luce would think of this character as her friend, right? And the episode overall is very validating of people who have that kind of mindset, and I'm that kind of person, so I really appreciate that. A lot, in fact. And so Luce, of course, is not going to want to change the nature of these characters, even for just one night. Though some tampering from the twins does end up transforming one of these characters into a horrible monster, which we'll talk about again in a minute. Turns out, though, the real reason the twins came tonight was because they knew nobody was going to be here. And they also know that Amity, who they call Mittens, which is pretty adorable, has like a secret hideaway, a secret clubhouse in the library somewhere. And they want to find her diary so they can post pages from it all around the school for her own good, because they're bullies. They're just like genuinely bullies. And not like of the highest caliber. They're not the absolute worst bullies that I've ever seen in television. Like, I don't think they're bad people. I don't think bullies are inherently bad people either. But a lot of bullies in television are. They seem more like the actual kind of bully you might see within a family dynamic, though. They're not exactly bad people. They're just mean people. And not even all the time, either. There are several times throughout this episode that they're perfectly likable. But Luce, of course, tries to stop them, only for them to be found out by Amity, and Amity thinks that Luce was along for this willingly, like she knew what they were going to do. And so now she has just one more reason to hate on Luce, unfortunately. But already the episode has started to paint Amity in a more sympathetic light than we had ever seen before, even considering some of the stuff that we've seen her go through already in the show, because we do get to see some of her diary pages come to life in the form of little mini Amity popping up on top of the page and reciting some of the stuff she's written. You can tell that she's a very insecure kid who's just trying to keep up a specific image and is kind of having second thoughts about that in the first place, and isn't really sure of where she fits, and isn't sure about Luce either. Like, you can tell she's like, okay, she's like gay panicking over Luce, right? That's pretty obvious from some stuff later. But, like, it's clear that she doesn't understand that's what's happening yet. And also, Luce is just a very different kind of person than she's used to dealing with. So, of course, she's been put off guard by this person that she's not used to dealing with. And it's making her rethink stuff. And then after the twins run off, and we see this book character, this kid's book character, that was changed by one of their alterations, come in and start menacing Amity, trying to sew her into a book, and Luce comes to her rescue, trying to use the unique magic of this night to turn herself into Azura, because we saw that Amity is also an Azura fan. She has books 1 through 4 in her little hideaway cave, which is an adorable detail, giving these two characters this thing that they can relate over. Though it's never explained where those books came from, why they're on the Boiling Isles. I don't think we ever get an explanation for that up to the point we're at in the show right now. So, really looking forward to how they explain that later. But yeah, Luce shows up. She tries to save Amity in whatever way she can. It doesn't exactly go well, but you can tell that it's scored her some points with Amity. And it's only once the two of them start to work together that they're able to get out of this situation, and Amity has to make the conscious choice to return and save Luce in turn, which was pretty cool. Those are some pretty cool details. And by the end, Amity has been kind of kick-started on her upcoming redemption arc because she has decided that there are some things that she needs to rethink about Luce and about her life in general. There's really no concrete resolution to that particular arc here, but we see enough of Amity. We get to see enough candid Amity here, let's put it that way, that it's clear she is going to have an arc, so it didn't need to be resolved here. It works out just fine, and we do see Luce start to form a genuine bond with her, aside from just getting Amity to rethink some stuff, because she ends up lending Amity one of the Azura books that she didn't have yet. It's a genuinely good episode, which is particularly memorable for Amity's siblings being introduced, but also for giving us those more candid looks at Amity than we had seen up to this point. And also, straight up, even though it didn't work, Luce being creative enough to try to use the unique magic present during this situation to help someone, like being creative enough to think to do that in general, shows a lot of potential. She is a genuinely clever and creative person. End of the day, this episode is as much setup as it is anything else. Setting up Amity's upcoming arc. Again, I believe even setting up some stuff regarding the B-plot with Ida, giving us a taste of how creative Luce can be with magic before she's really learned much magic. But it's still satisfying in and of itself as an individual story, at least I think it is. As per usual, though, I'd like to know, what do you think of Lost in Language if you have seen it? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, if you could, please like the video and share it with anyone else you think might enjoy my content. I'm trying to get myself out there, and I'd really appreciate it if you guys could help. You could also check out my social medias. Links to those will be in the video description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.